Starting in 2023, I jumped into the Yakuza series of games, starting with Yakuza 0, and most recently finishing Yakuza Infinite Wealth, which is Yakuza 8 basically. There are a total of 10 games in this series with varied writing quality, to be completely honest, but the main protagonist, Kazuma Kiryu, somehow ends up being one of the greatest video game protagonists still when they had 10 games to fumble the bag. And believe me, the writers at RGG did fumble the bag sometimes, but they always find ways to improve Kiryu's character in later games. I think it's also important that I add that all the topics that are brought up here and points that I make are my own interpretation of how I feel like Kiryu's story and Yakuza's writing style have developed over the years. A lot of people have different opinions, and hey, it's a fandom. People have different opinions. Yeah, my video, my opinions. You're wrong. One thing I don't think is talked about in fiction is when old, mediocre writing is strengthened and given increased value by future content. This is an interesting problem because at the time of release, the writing is and will stay kinda mid. But when a later game or addition in a series retroactively addresses the issues that were caused because of this, does that make the previous mediocre writing better? Or even good? Now, why is Kiryu, of all characters, the best character to talk about a problem like this? It's because he's never really a bad character per se. He does have parts where his logic does not line up, but since Kiryu is kind of seen and propped up by the story as the ideal Yakuza, he isn't exactly faulted for when some of his decisions are hypocritical, to say the least. Now, while I won't be talking about them very much, this is a pretty obvious example even as far back as the writing of Yakuza 1 and 2. When I originally played through the games, I loved Yakuza 0, but I thought 1 and 2 were a bit of a drop down in terms of writing quality. The main reason a lot of plot points in Yakuza 1 are given weight is because I played Yakuza 0 before I played Yakuza 1. Yakuza 0 gives us a more in-depth look at Kiryu's life as a early Yakuza. A lot of these plot points are pretty much sat on until Yakuza 1, where Kiryu loses a lot of these people that we see he is close to in Yakuza 0, including his brother Nishikiyama. Anywho, we will not be focusing on Kiryu's early life as a Yakuza, rather his later life involving an inner conflict between his life as a criminal and his life as a citizen. A large and honestly needed shift came for Kiryu's character in Yakuza 3, where his relationship with children is deepened. He's opened his own orphanage, just like the one he grew up in. He's eventually dragged back into the Yakuza antics later in the game because his life as a Yakuza and his civilian life are beginning to intertwine due to plot. Honestly, Kiryu's character in Yakuza 3 is great. He has some magnificent moments with the kids in the games, and the lessons on life that he teaches them show how truly wise and caring he is as a human. You know, I heard people talking about Yakuza 3, but I really like to call it the Kiryu Adoption Simulator. Kiryu Adoption Simulator is the game of the year. It does a great job of establishing Kiryu's humanity, and you're just a hater if you don't like Yakuza 3. You're a hater. As much as I love them, I think the character flaws for Kiryu actually start with Yakuza 4 and Yakuza 5. Now, I will be the first person to tell you that I love Yakuza 5, but I've heard a decent amount of outcry from people who don't like the story very much. The one character trait about Kiryu that many question is related to his resolution at the end of Yakuza 4. Kiryu's final boss in Yakuza 4 is against Daigo Dojima. Daigo is the one he left the Tojo clan after leaving to build his orphanage. And what does Kiryu say to Daigo before the big boss fight? Okay, Kiryu, that's a bit rich coming from you, considering you were the only one who put the crumbling Tojo clan into Daigo's lap in the first place, and that was only because another guy came in and fucked up the Tojo clan, which you caused. But I'll give this a bit of a hand wave, because the fight kind of feels like a parent stepping in to teach their child a lesson when they've lost their way. And I think that's what RGG was going for. They lean into this because Kiryu actually goes back to the Tojo clan at the end of Yakuza 4 to start to rebuild with the help of Saejima, Majima, and Daigo. So, what happens in Yakuza 5? Wow, we're starting out with this taxi driver guy. Seems pretty important.
乗せてくれないか。この車に乗りたいと言ってるんだが。前の車からお願いします。
God damn it, it's fucking Kiryu. Mr. John Yakuza, will you please tell me why you left your fucking orphanage and your, in the Tojo clan to go work as a taxi driver? Why would you leave them? What is wrong with you? Oh, so you had to leave them because of Murray Park, because she came in and she told you to, she gaslit you into, leaving the kids because it was for the better. But grow some balls, man. Come on. And also, I don't believe Kiryu leaving the Tojo again is really touched on, so it's just kind of contrived. So let's sum up Kiryu's relationship with the Yakuza. In Yakuza 0 and 1, he's part of the Tojo, and in 1, he becomes chairman of the Tojo, but succeeds his position to some guy his mentor Kazuma trusted. In Yakuza 2, apparently that guy is actually evil, so instead of taking responsibility, Kiryu finds a new leader, the son of the original leader of the Dojima family. Okay, weird, but okay. In Yakuza 3, Kiryu leaves the Tojo in Daigo's hands and goes to start his orphanage. Everything is all well and good with the Tojo, so okay. In Yakuza 4, Daigo is forced to join the villains of the game in a money scheme in order to rebuild the Tojo. Kiryu disagrees, so slaps Daigo to be responsible. But stupid, a little dumb, but at least he agrees to help out at the end. In Yakuza 5, Kiryu leaves the Tojo to run his orphanage instead of trying to compromise and work on both. And then he's pushed away by Mirai. The only question I have for Kiryu is, why did you believe what Mirai said? You would think you'd have more of an argument. Those are your kids. Kiryu, you have children. What the fuck? In Yakuza 6, Kiryu decides to leave again after he dies at the end of the game. He leaves because he feels his presence is too destructive for the kids. They will always be dragged back into Yakuza stuff, so he leaves to pursue a new life. For me, this plot point is lukewarm. It validates that Kiryu is pretty self-loathing about his past of crime, and therefore validates his resolution in Yakuza 5. But it does not solve the fact that he's denied responsibility for his Yakuza life for most games in the series. Enter Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Kiryu is now dying of cancer, and he has to grapple with his past, from his mistakes to his successes. Infinite Wealth really broke new ground for the series by referencing old games. The Kiryu sub-stories and memories allow for the player to get a full spread of Kiryu's past. We see the sins of his past finally get drummed up in the form of this guy, Masataka Ebina. Ebina is the estranged son of another Yakuza who did not take responsibility for his misdeeds, Arakawa. He resented the Yakuza for spouting the bonds of Yakuza were thicker than blood, because he never had a solid blood relationship with anybody except his mother. He was tossed away by the Yakuza, and he wanted revenge. Now, I also will admit that the hatred for Ebina throughout the fanbase is kinda warranted. He's a last-minute addition and comes in at the very end of the story, and he's suddenly Ichiban's like half brother. He kind of appears out of nowhere, but I do firmly believe that his place as a vehicle of symbolism is one of the best things about him. And for me, Ebina's inclusion does not take away from the banger final climb with Kiryu and friends up Millennium Tower. Everything's still great. He dejects a little bit, but I can forgive him for what meaning he has to Kiryu's story. And again, I can forgive him. Not everybody can, and I understand that. After you do the final climb up Millennium Tower with Kiryu and friends, Kiryu defeats Ebina. And Ebina says this.
あんたらはいくら引退しようが解散しようが元の鞘に戻ってくるヤクザだったという自分を完全に否定することができないんだ口じゃ悪い悪いと言いながら自分たちを正当化する偉いヤクザもんほど耳障りの良い未来を語り戦う理由を探し続ける
He pleads for Kiryu to kill him because no matter what, he'll keep coming back for revenge. What does Kiryu say?
立場じゃないことは百も承知でいる。お前が荒川を恨み、氷川を恨み、ヤクザすべてを恨むのはわかる。だが、俺やあいつらに償うチャンスをくれねえか。そのためには生きなきゃなんねえ。どんなクズでも生きることでしか人はやり直せねえんだ。俺たちは生きなきゃなんねえ。白でも黒でもない灰色の道を。だからエビナ頼む。お前も生きてやり直してくれ。あいつらを殺さないでやってくれ。頼む。俺が謝るから。そんなんじゃ許されねえことは分かっちゃいるが、俺が謝るから。すまなかった。桐生さん、桐生さん、しっかりして。桐生さん、いや限界。桐生ちゃん、死ぬな桐生。
So, take everything I said and throw it away. Take it at face value. Yes, Kiryu did do all those things. But I think RGG succeeds at making him a full character because through this scene, they address his flaws and setbacks when it comes to the Yakuza life. The writers of Infinite Wealth embrace the past of the Yakuza games, and by proxy, Kiryu was forced to embrace that past as well. The times that Kiryu stepped away from the Yakuza in the past are seemingly put on display in this game through Kiryu and this monologue. The through line in this game for Kiryu's side of it is regret. Let's talk about one last thing. The song that puts Kiryu's entire arc on full display.
この歌を送るぜ。バカだろうこんな俺を愛するな ては夜ほどに悲しくてうまくもないことずっとわかっていたのにバカだろバカだねバカだよバカ野郎最後の最後まで泣かせてばかりのバカ野郎あなたを愛してるも言えないままなんてバカだろう
Honestly, the lyrics show just how self-pitying Kiryu really is. And while the cutscene for this shows and highlights the Morning Glory Orphanage, look at the other characters that are shown. You got Nishiki, Date, Saejima, and Daigo. All people Kiryu genuinely seems to feel like he let down. That feeling of letting someone you love down is really relatable. And Kiryu seems to feel like he let, everyone he knows down. RGG used those writing mistakes and spun them into a mix of confusion and regret that Kiryu now faces at the very end of his life. For me, that's why that monologue at the end hits so hard. Many of his karaoke songs involve dark themes, man. That whole speech about going on living despite your regrets and mistakes is not just Kiryu talking to Ebina. It's him speaking to himself, Daigo, Majima, Haruka, and all the people he feels like he let down in his life. So, yeah, RGG stopped avoiding the past, and through this they were able to tell a story about Kiryu finally breaking down and accepting his past. I've heard some flack thrown at Infinite Wealth's story, but I really like it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and use that fucking heat action on the subscribe button. I played Yakuza 0 starting in 2023, and I just recently finished Infinite Wealth. I really feel like I got maximum enjoyment out of it since I played all the games 0 through 8 now. It was a real treat, and it pays to be a Yakuza fan. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Leave maybe a thought in the comments, and there will be more videos on the way soon. My next video will be a little bit more different than the recent ones that I've been doing, or it could be on a more obscure game series. So if you feel like it, stay tuned.